למד כל הירושלמי. איפה הבחור?
הוא היה לפני החתונה אצל הרב.
הוא רוצה שים על כל ירושלמי, הוא רוצה ברוך שלא הצלוח את זה.
לפני החתונה.
הרב אמר ברוך הבא.
This is Shira Shirim Rabbah. This is 1-1. And I want to do something a little bit different from what everybody else is doing. The beginning of Shira Shirim starts by saying that the Song of Songs, which was Shlomo HaMelech, which was Solomon's, he was King Solomon, the wisest of all the people. And the Midrash is going to take from another one of the writings that Shlomo HaMelech did from Proverbs to try to understand why Shlomo HaMelech is starting this way. From Proverbs, it says, "Have you seen a man diligent in his work? He shall stand before kings, and he shall not stand before men of darkness." This is, by the way, Proverbs 22. Who is diligent in his work? What does that mean? That's what the Midrash comes and gives us this tradition of what does this mean, and how does this apply to my life and to your life. And it does. And it has a deep idea that connects to how we should be thinking about our life today, like right now. So the Midrash is going to come and explain it. Now, by the way, the next set of Mishnahs in this is going to come and is going to lay out a few other men who were diligent in his work, like Moshe Rabbeinu. But we don't start with Moshe Rabbeinu. We start with Yosef. Yosef was wrongfully sold into slavery by his brothers. And then he went to go work for Potiphar. Potiphar bought him because he wanted to use him for immoral purposes. He had a wife. He could see that Yosef was very, very smart. When he was sold into slavery and went down there, he was 17. He saw he was very, very smart. So he put him in as a manager of his household in terms of doing like accounting and financial work and like that. So the Midrash says, have you seen a man diligent in his work? This is talking about Yosef, it says. And it says it happened on the day when he entered the house of his master Potiphar to do his work. And no man of the household staff was there in the house. So it's referring to Bereshit in chapter 39. It's the 11th pasuk there. The Midrash is going to try to give a lesson to us about the benefits of service with Yosef. So Rabbi Pinchas says, in the name of Shmuel bar Abba, it says, any servant who serves his master properly will ultimately go free. And it says, from where do we learn this? It says, from Yosef, who, on account of serving his master properly, did ultimately go free. Now, this is all a thing about attitude, right? Because who is free, right? The whole Jewish story is about being free. The Jewish story is about having one master, Hashem, and that it's just you and Hashem. And everybody else is really just an agent of Hashem, and nobody can really do anything to you unless Hashem wills it, right? And the idea is that it's saying, therefore, because Joseph served his master properly, the proverb says that he shall stand before kings. And this is a reference, they're saying, to Paro. Paro was a king. And as it's stated, so Paro sent and summoned Joseph, and they rushed him from the dungeon. And he came to Paro. This is in chapter 41. And it says that he shall not stand before men of darkness. And this is referring to Potiphar. And it says that because the Holy One, blessed he, darkened his eyes and emasculated him. In other words, measure for measure. Potiphar wanted to buy him, Yosef, and use him for immoral purposes. And in the end, measure for measure, for whatever reason, Paro decided to use him as a certain kind of servant that had to be emasculated. And so they emasculated him. They took a pair of scissors and emasculated him. So measure for measure, we see. Now, we see, okay, Yosef is diligent in his work, and he was brought to freedom. Now, you can't really understand this without looking at the Meforshim. Sfas Eremis says about this, Yosef's diligence didn't come from a sense of duty to his master, who, wrongfully sold him into slavery or made him work or something like that. it's really from Yosef's profound awareness of the situation that he found himself in. In other words, in very much like a Purim story with Mordechai and Esther, they realize that Hashem is setting the chessboard, and that it's not a coincidence or an accident that he was sold into slavery and that he ended up in this house, and by the way, ended up in this situation, and by the way, ended up in a jail. Now, Yosef would end up marrying Potiphar's wife's daughter. So, not accidental. Hashem is setting the chessboard. What does that mean that we're a servant? It means that you and I, that we're always cognizant that Hashem is always setting the chessboard, that Hashem is always running things, and that whatever situation we find ourselves in, even a very dark one, like what Yosef found where he was languishing in a prison, that we keep in mind to say, hey, you know what? This is part of the divine plan. You know what? This is for the good. You know what? I'm a servant of Hashem. This is not accidental. And we see it in a different way. And this, by the way, what I find remarkable is really like a commentary on free will and determinism, and a passive belief versus an active belief. And what the Sfas Emes, as I understand it, is pointing out is that we, in our divine service, in order to stand next to Hashem and to be elevated as people, and to be brought on the top of the heap, to be elevated, is that we should always approach life in an active way, to say that this is from Hashem, and it's for the good. And even if I can't see it or perceive it right now, I know that I'm a servant of Hashem. Hashem is always active in the creation and is always setting the chessboard and arranging things. Now, that's not deterministic. We have free will. The Torah itself says you have the ability to choose between good and bad. And that's our role, right? We have the ability to choose to be a servant, to say that this is Hashem and have that confidence. And to really, in every situation, even if it's something not good, is to always try to see that Hashem has a role in what's happening. Now, a passive role would be more of a deterministic outlook, where you're saying like, well, this just happened to me, and that was my luck, or that's how I was born, or that was a constellation, or something like that. And it would be a very passive thing. You say, okay, well, that's it. But that's not what Yosef did. And that's what this Midrash is pointing out. Yosef was actively aware that Hashem is with him, didn't put him here by accident. There are no accidents, there are no coincidences. And he had that active faith, and that's what it's trying to teach us. And that is how the sages are saying that Shir Shirim starts off. It's saying that we should all be servants of Hashem. And in this relationship between the Jewish people and Hashem, that we always want to be this diligent servant. Now, we could have started off with Moshe Rabbeinu, and we don't. Moshe Rabbeinu's going to be in 1-2 of Shir Shirim Rabbah. It starts off with Yosef. Something bad happens to Yosef. Miserable, sold into slavery, and then put into a prison. Ugh, terrible, right? But it's saying to us as a Jewish people that no matter what happens to us, and to you in your life, or to me in my life, we always have to have that active attitude to say that we have free will, and that we're always diligent in the service to Hashem, and we're always trying to connect to Hashem, and we're always trying to see Hashem's role in things, even if we don't understand it. And that is why we're starting off here, to say, hey, with the Jewish people, we're not going to always go through good times. There are going to be hard things like Holocaust and pogroms, and situations where you have Christians like in the Portuguese Inquisition stealing and abducting tens of thousands of Jewish children under the age of 14 to go forcibly convert them. All sorts of awful things. And to say that even when you're having these awful things that happen to you, you're still a diligent servant to Hashem, and finding the mental space to be positive about it. And that's what's saying about Joseph. Have a great day.